The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
You're tuned into the most listened to radio show of its kind.
Come on, Pops. Now, you know I be getting mine. I mean, you getting it or you getting it. I'm getting it. Okay.
Yes. You are lucky because you are getting it every week. And if once a week isn't enough for you, and really, how can it be? Once a week? Come on. You need it much more than that. If that's the case, you can go to our website, or actually our YouTube channel, on our website at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. There you can get it anytime you want. We have all the shows from the very first one all the way up till last week.
Everything you want.
Yes, everything you want or could want. All right there on the YouTube channel. That address again is youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. If you'd rather catch this show live, and who wouldn't, you are in the right place at the right time. The right place being 100.3 WNOX, our flagship radio station right here in scenic and sunny Knoxville, Tennessee. The right time being every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. During the live broadcast, you can also watch this show on YouTube at the website for the radio station. That address is www.wnoxfm.com. Not only do you get the audio, though, you get the video as well. So what's the advantage to that? Well, there are many. The most important, there we go. The most important, which Tori was just demonstrating, is you get to see handsome and hunky me, along with the show producer, Tori. And who would be a ladies' man, but those days are over for him, you know.
Now, unless you happen to be Leon Phelps, I suggest that you set your sights a little bit lower, all right?
Tori being the married type now, off the market.
Yes.
So.
Yes. It's safer for everyone, I think.
I've seen a lot of women out front picketing just to, you know, get you back off that, get you back on the market. So.
Picking,
yeah. Yeah, we'll just let that dog lie.
getting ready for the Super Bowl.
It's coming up. I hear it's this week.
Sometime, I think it's tomorrow.
Is that when it is? All right, anyway. Oh, thank you again for tuning in this week. You're listening to the Patrick Riggins Show, part of the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network, the only place on the radio dial where you get the unvarnished, and speaking of Tori, naked and sometimes hard to accept truth. See, now everybody will tune into that webcam. Oh, you know, here we don't sugarcoat it for you. That would be an insult to you, the listening audience. You expect the truth here, and that's what you get on this show. Before we get to the first break, and it gets here pretty quickly, I wanted to get to this story that ran here locally, but it's been throughout the whole country. And I'm talking about, of course, the gay dog at Madison County, Tennessee Animal Shelter. Now, every show host has this, a story that is custom made for comedy. You just cannot pick a better fit than South Park Season 1 in this story. The quandary is, do you take advantage of it? At the risk of offending someone, do you go for the cheap laugh? Of course, yeah, being a decidedly serious radio show, we had no other choice than to go for it. All right, we'll hit this real quick for the break. The story is, apparently, a guy happened to realize his dog was gay. Most likely, it was pointed out to him by one of his friends.
Yeah, dude, I think your dog is gay. What do you mean? That dog is a gay homosexual.
So, a guy turns this dog into the shelter, claiming it is gay. I guess he just wasn't told beforehand.
And forgot to mention that his dog is a gay homosexual.
But apparently he noticed his dog demonstrating dominance over another dog and immediately assumed he had a gay dog on his hands.
That is the gayest dog I have ever seen.
And if you looked at the story, from the picture in the story, it looks like a real nice dog. So I assume the guy who's been unnamed, they didn't give his name, the owner, I would assume he would try and train this behavior out of him.
Sit, Sparky. Good boy. Now shake. Good boy. Now don't be gay. Hey, still look pretty gay to me.
Are we still doing this? But alas, the owner's friends would not stop kidding him about his gay dog.
Hey, Stan, your dog been to any pride marches lately?
Yeah, maybe you should take him to a Barbara Streisand concert. Stupid little gay dog.
Gay dog.
So not being able to put up with the peer pressure, the owner turned it in at the Madison County Animal Shelter in Jackson, Tennessee.
It's the one place where gay animals can really be themselves.
For those of you who are now offended, I would like to sincerely say, get a sense of humor already. If you cannot see the comedy in this story, then you're wound way too tight. And listening to the show will probably do you some good. The good news is the dog was adopted and is now living under an assumed name, I hear, because of all the publicity. Anyway, we're up on the first break here on the Patrick Riggins Show. When we come back, we'll talk about one of our favorite things here in Tennessee people talk about is Senator Stacey Canfield. And an Obama interview and some Hagel testimony, all sorts of stuff coming up. We will be back after these messages.
You better listen. Get ready, all your lonely girls, and leave those umbrellas at home. All right.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. Proud member of the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. Playing a little House of Pain bumper music there. If you're watching on the webcam, you can see Tori jumping around. All right.
But I will not jump for joy.
He will not jump for joy, for those of you who watch that. What was that show?
My name is Earl.
My name is Earl. His name is Tori. That's what we need. A My Name is Tori show.
Yeah, no.
We'll just have a camera follow you around. So
That would be entertainment. I'll tell you what, yes. That would be entertainment, but I wouldn't want it.
Well, it'd be kind of boring because, you know, part of the time they'd just be sitting out in the visiting area of the jail, I guess.
Oh. I've kept myself out of trouble.
Yes, you have.
For the most part.
All right. This segment, I want to talk about our state senator, or a state senator from Tennessee, Stacey Canfield. I know immediately I'm going to have people jamming the phone lines here at the station, but you can hear me out on this first. This story ran in the national newspaper, and of course it was picked up everywhere else too. And it starts out, a nasty email that State Senator Stacey Canfield fired off to several critics has drawn yet another round of notoriety for the Knoxville Republican. The firebrand lawmaker told at least 3 people who wrote his office that they should, quote, consider therapy and medication after they expressed opposition to legislation he has filed this session. And one of these people was named in the, or actually 2 of them were named in the article. One was Talisha Cobb. She's a Berry Hill woman who used to live in Knoxville, in the area Canfield now represents. She wrote the lawmaker to express her displeasure with his Classroom Protection Act, which would discourage classroom discussions of homosexuality. Well, that kind of ties in with the first segment. And his proposal to tie welfare benefits to children's performance in school. Now, here's part of what she had written. Quote, you are an embarrassment to our great state. Folks all over the country and here in Tennessee are looking at the bills you are proposing in shock. They are the most ignorant and morally lacking legislation that could be proposed this year. It is clear that you are targeting homosexuals and low-income families with hogwash legislation. You need to search your heart, your values, and your Christianity to find a better way to represent us as a whole. Now, first off, Talisha, don't bring Christianity into a discussion about the government giving money to people as charity. Christianity argues against this blatantly unchristian act because it's theft, plain and simple. Taking money from one taxpayer at the point of a gun and giving it to another is theft. These people who sit out here and argue they're doing, quote, the Lord's work by having the government give money to the poor better understand they are badly mistaken. What happened to all the liberals yelling about separation of church and state? Even though it's not in the Constitution, that church and state isn't, they scream every time anything remotely Christian is done by government. Now, if you're arguing this is the Lord's work, then that should tell you the government shouldn't be doing it now, shouldn't it? If that's, we want to be consistent, that is, which most liberals and conservatives, too, aren't. But back to the story, Senator Campfield sent this in reply to Talisha's email. Quote, you seem to have some serious deep anger issues. Have you ever thought about therapy? I hear they are doing some wonderful things with medications these days. Jacob Wilson, another person who had sent him a letter, he's a 21-year-old college student. He had received a similar reply from Senator Campfield, said his email to the senator had been harsh but not angry. When he was asked about this, Mr. Wilson said, as a politician, you should be prepared to handle things like this. You should be professional every day. Well, Mr. Wilson, you are 21 and in college. Should you not also be professional as well? You are, after all, an adult, correct? Why not start acting like one? For too long, we have been letting people get away with unacceptable behavior. People want to pass on their incivility. They want to be able to act however they want, yet demand you treat them with decorum and respect at all times, no matter how they act. And if you don't, they kick and scream like little babies. Witness these emails that were written to Senator Campfield. I don't care if you're for the legislation or not. I don't care if you write something mean and hateful. Just don't get all bent out of shape when that kind of treatment is returned. These two people sent these impolite and rude emails, and when they get something snarky in return, they cry and scream like little babies. Yes, Talisha Cobb, Jacob Wilson, I'm calling you a couple of immature children. Little whiny babies who want to act however they want, but demand everyone else treat them correctly. And don't give me this, but Patrick, he's a legislator, he should be more professional. Baloney! These people who wrote these emails are adults, yet they are acting like spoiled children. And if someone doesn't treat them with the utmost respect, they go running to the newspapers and the media like the crybabies they are. Give me a break. Are you saying you should get a pass on your behavior while another adult doesn't? Just because he's a politician doesn't mean anything. You are just immature, and you want to be able to get away with yelling and screaming at people without getting it back. This is just classically what liberals do, and conservatives too. They want to yell and insult, but not get it in return. They can dish it out, but they can't take it because, again, they're immature. You people just need to grow up, or at least grow a pair so you can take it if you're going to dish it out. But, I just don't think that's likely. I guess these two whiners don't abide by the whole treat others as you want to be treated rule. I guess they would rather obey the I want to act however I want, but you have to act like an adult rule that, other immature people and children, the rule they follow. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And like I said, if you're for that legislation or not, I don't care. It's just, if you're going to write impolite, rude letter, just be expecting to get one back. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of ridiculous.
Yes?
Yes.
You're speaking of me, yes?
No, I'm speaking of our president.
Oh, okay. Carry on.
He gave an interview to the magazine, The New Republic, and during the question he was asked, I'm wondering if you as a fan take less pleasure in watching football, knowing the impact that the game takes on its players. Now, this interviewer was referring to studies that show how concussion injuries are starting to show effects later on in life for football players. Now, the president answered with this, I'm a big football fan, but I have to tell you, if I had a son, I would have to think long and hard before I let him play football. What he's talking about is worrying about these people getting concussions. He also said, I tend to be more worried about college players and NFL players in the sense that NFL players have a union. They're grown men. They can make some of these decisions on their own. And he would also like to see the NCAA do something. by him saying that, it means either they can do something or the government will stick their nose into it. But that is not really my point here. My point I'd like to make is President Obama is so concerned about these kids in college, who are adults, by the way. They're over 18. And being over 18, they can join the military. But if they do that, then Obama will send them overseas to possibly die in a country that cares nothing for us. Die in a country we should not be bothering with in the first place. But putting Americans' lives in danger that's not enough for him. No, sir, he has to endanger and kill indigenous people in those other countries, courtesy of unmanned drones flying around over there killing not only the people they're aiming for, but 10 or 20 others who happen to be unfortunate enough to be in the area. I guess that's collateral damage. That's what they call those people who happen to be murdered in those attacks, authorized by our president. I guess those people don't count. They're expendable. But let them put on a football helmet, and then all of a sudden, hey, now they count for something, at least to this president. He even puts our ambassadors, our diplomatic people, into countries that kind of guarantee their safety. These countries also won't allow us to bring in enough security to keep our people safe ourselves. They're in more danger there than running around a football field. At least on the field, they ain't shooting at you. Well, not yet anyway. But if the president is so concerned about all that, then why not just pull these kids out of these countries where we have no business being in the first place? We're putting them in much more danger there than they'll ever be running up and down the football field. But that doesn't really fit with the scenario, the story that he's putting forth.
That's priorities.
It is priorities.
That's priorities.
The priorities are to teach that other country a lesson. And I've covered that on this show. If you want to go back and check that YouTube channel, youtube.com/Patrick Riggin Show, you'll get plenty of opportunities to review my theories on all of that, my analysis. Anyway, we're up on the half-hour break already. This show just flies by. When we come back, we'll talk about Chuck Hagel and how he accused America of being didn't actually accuse America of being a bully, but didn't not agree with it. This is the Patrick Riggin Show. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggin Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back for the second great half of the Patrick Riggins Show. We are the show you've always dreamed of. Now it has become a reality. Thanks to the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. We are providing the guiding light through the hurricane of misinformation that abounds out on the open sea of the television media and the radio dial, even on the internet, probably most especially the internet. We are the lighthouse by which you can consistently navigate because, like a good beacon, we are grounded in solid rock principles, those being freedom and liberty, and along the way, sailing towards the restoration of the Constitution. This week, Chuck Hagel had a little minor uproar during his confirmation hearings as the Secretary of Defense. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, he's a Republican, in these hearings played a taped interview from Al Jazeera in which Hagel was interviewed and took questions from the audience via email. Now, here is a clip of that.
We've got an email from Wendy Day. She writes to us from Georgia here in the United States, and she writes, "Can the rest of the world be persuaded to give up their arsenal when the image of the United States is that of the world's bully? Don't we indeed need to change the perception and the reality before asking folks to lay down their arms, nuclear or otherwise?"
So, and that was the Al Jazeera clip. So Chuck Hagel was asked if he, in essence, agreed that America needed to revamp its image of being a bully. Now, he answered with this. This is from the Al Jazeera interview.
Well, her observation is a good one, and it's relevant, yes, to her question. And again, I think that's all part of leadership.
So, Senator Ted Cruz, he's, like I said, the Republican from Texas, And he played that clip, those clips, actually played the whole thing in the confirmation hearings and had this to say about it.
Senator Hagel, do you think it's appropriate for the chief civilian leader of the U.S. military forces to agree with the statement that both the perception, quote, and the reality is that the United States is, quote, the world's bully?
So obviously, Senator Cruz doesn't think the United States is the world's bully. Either that or he's trying to grandstand and play gotcha politics with Chuck Hagel, something the Republicans accuse the media of doing with them all the time. But back to the testimony. Hagel erroneously began backpedaling and trying to explain away what he had said when he should have stood on his statement and given examples of what he was talking about. Now, sensing weakness, Senator Cruz, he finished up his part of the time with this. This clip is out of order with the next one, but I thought this clip was better to, in the rotation, be better to play first. This is what he wrapped up with, though.
And to go on Al Jazeera, a foreign network, broadcasting propaganda to nations that are hostile to us, and to explicitly agree with the characterization of the United States as the world's bully, I would suggest is not the conduct one would expect of a Secretary of Defense.
The question, if you might not have caught it, the question originally on Al Jazeera was submitted by someone, a lady from Georgia, the state, not the country. That question just as well could have come from Ron Paul or any libertarian. Now, here is one last clip from Senator Cruz.
You explicitly agreed with the characterization of the United States as the world's bully, and I would suggest that is not a characterization. I think the United States has spilled more blood, more treasure, standing for freedom, liberating people across the world.
Okay, that one ended a little abruptly, but it goes into the clip I'd played before this one. The point is, Senator Cruz, you are right. You're absolutely correct. We have spilled blood and treasure going around the world, but it wasn't liberating. It was sticking our noses into other countries' business. It was called liberating, fighting for freedom, but it wasn't. You know it. Every person sitting there in Congress knows it. Even the president knows it. And yet we continue doing it to this day. Everybody going crazy about Hagel saying we're a bully. Well, aren't we? Companies want to go into another country to do business there. The government of that country doesn't want them. So that company goes crying to the United States government, demanding they do something about it. Our government says, hey, it's a free market. You have to let them in. Well, no, they don't. It's called the free market because it is free of government coercion. I can freely participate or not. But that's not what we have. What we have is called crony capitalism. That's when the government interferes in the market and picks winners or losers based on, frankly, who is paying off the most government people. So the government of this particular country says, no, we don't want to participate in that. But that doesn't work for us. The company, this company that's lobbying is paying a lot of money in campaign contributions, and they want something for all that money they've been donating. So our government tries, and diplomatically, they try to solve the problem that way. And if that doesn't work, well, we'll just start an embargo against that country and pressure others to join in as well. All the while we were doing this, well, hey, what do you know? All of a sudden we found out that government is abusing some of its citizens. So we start working to undermine the ruling party and give money to the so-called resistance, actively trying to overthrow that country's government. Now, when we get that done, get that ruling party overthrown, then the new ruling party welcomes in the foreign companies and everybody's happy. Well, except for the people who are from the old ruling party or in some way enemies of the new American-backed government. Now, they'll be put to death, either through direct means such as execution after maybe a mock trial, or by starving them to death or preventing medical care from reaching them. There are a number of ways. It really doesn't matter to us anyway because companies are doing business now. That's all that matters. Well, that and those congressional representatives keep getting their campaign donations from the companies doing business in this new country now. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That's just how far ahead of the game you are when you listen to this show. You can listen to those archive shows at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. If our government is not going to respect the sovereignty of another country, then what makes you think it is going to respect your sovereignty over yourself? It's not, and it doesn't. Yet we all act all appalled that this person would testify that we're a bully in the world. Why is it, do you think, a lot of people cheered when 9/11 happened? We were told by our government and the media that it's because they hate Western civilization. They have a deep-seated hatred for everything for which we stand. Now, that's true among the fanatical people, but they are not as numerous as we are led to believe. If they were, we'd be experiencing attacks on a daily basis. In fact, I'd go so far as to say we'd be having multiple attacks every day. If we had as many fanatical people against us as we are led to believe. Now, think about that, and you'll realize I'm right. If we had all these people who really hated us, they really despised us, and are willing to die to attack us, then why aren't we having more attacks around the world? Why aren't we having more attacks within our very country? Oh, that's right. It's because we have that tight, impenetrable southern border with Mexico. Yeah, that's right. No one's getting through there. With all these people who are supposedly working for our demise, with that huge of a population against us, they would have plenty of people to continue sending to their deaths to attack us around the world. So with that not happening, we can infer from that there aren't that many fanatical people out there. Most of these other people are different from us culturally, but all they really want is for us to leave them and their country alone. But again, why so many people why were they celebrating after 9/11? If all those people aren't fanatics hell-bent on killing Americans, why all the cheering? Well, look no further than this statement by Hagel. What does everyone do when the big bully finally gets his comeuppance? What happens when someone stands up to the bully and knocks him down? Everybody else in the schoolyard cheers. They're happy to finally see the big guy get what he had coming. Not that we deserved to have our people killed on 9/11. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is these people saw it as payback for all the meddling we have been doing in their countries. Something that wouldn't be happening if we minded our own business. I can't reiterate this point too many times. If our government is not going to respect the sovereignty of another country, what makes you think it's going to respect the sovereignty over yourself? We are up on the last break here on the Patrick Riggins Show. The Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network will be right back after a couple of messages. Stay tuned.
Oh, yeah!
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show and the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. Yesterday, while I was doing some show prep, I ran across this story, and I wanted to relay it to my audience just in case you missed it. It originally ran on Cleveland.com, which is, no, it's not something to do with Family Guy. It's an outlet for both the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Sun News. The title of the article was, Postal Service Says It Is Immune from Local Traffic Laws. The article began, the notorious East Cleveland traffic cameras nabbed U.S. Postal Service vehicles breaking the law 7 times and sent a notice to the local post office with the bad news every driver hates to see. A picture of the infraction and a demand for payment. Jennifer Breslin, she's senior litigation counsel for the Postal Service, instead of sending payment, sent a letter stating in part, quote, in providing mail service across the country, the Postal Service attempts, that's my emphasis, to work within local and state laws and regulations when feasible. Oh, how nice of them. The Postal Service is going to attempt to work within local and state laws and regulations. That is, if they feel like it. Her letter continued, quote, however, as you are probably aware, the Postal Service enjoys federal immunity from state and local regulation. The Postal Service requires its employees to obey all traffic laws and rules while operating Postal Service vehicles. However, the state and or local ordinances imposing penalties and fines cannot be enforced as against the Postal Service. So the feds don't have to obey your little local laws, if anyone is surprised by this attitude. After all, the federal government has been trampling on local and state laws for years now, with no ill effects. Why does it surprise anyone they would think themselves above the law? East Cleveland City Mayor Gary Norton said he was flummoxed. He issued the statement, quote, "I was unaware that the post office doesn't have to stop at red lights or obey the speed limit, but since they aren't, I wish I'd get my mail faster." So Mayor Norton said if an individual driving a mail vehicle was stopped by a police officer, the individual would be responsible. But he wonders why the post office dodged instead of giving up the culprits responsible for the traffic infractions. It's very simple, Mayor Norton. The federal government thinks it's above everyone else in this country. I've said it over and over on this show. We are upside down in this country. The people are on the bottom, then the states, with the federal government at the top, when it is supposed to be exactly opposite. To repeat myself, which I've said here on this show over and over, we were here first, then the states, then the federal government. Thus, we have all the rights, then the states, and the last in line is the federal government. As for wondering why the Postal Service didn't tell who was driving the vehicles breaking the traffic laws, it's because the feds cover themselves. They don't acknowledge that someone working for them has to answer for anything to anyone other than to the federal government. It's really that simple. They're not hiding anything. They just don't think they have anything to answer for. And how dare you try and impose or subject one of their people to your laws anyway? I thought that was a really good story and just another example of the federal government deciding it doesn't want to obey what you've got to say. One last story here I want to get to as well. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time here. And I want to get to this because it relates to gun control. And I've been covering this the past few weeks, and we've been talking about here, since the shooting in December. Now, this is out of Atlanta, Georgia. This last Thursday, an armed guard stopped a school shooter after he opened fire at Price Middle School, which is located just south of downtown Atlanta. A student opened fire at his middle school Thursday afternoon, wounding a 14-year-old in the neck before an armed officer working at the school was able to get the gun away. The armed resource officer who took the gun away was off duty and at the school, but police didn't release details on him or whether he is regular stationed at Price Middle. Amazing. A shooter plus armed officer equals armed officer wins. How do you like that math?
I've not heard anything about that.
Well, you're not.
I've not heard the first thing about that. We've heard about every other shooting.
Yeah. It's because that argument doesn't work with taking your guns away.
It makes too much sense.
Yes.
If it makes too much sense, we can't use it.
And if we talk about this story, then I don't know, we might have to acknowledge maybe the NRA was right. Maybe we need an armed officer in every school.
Yeah.
And we are not acknowledging that. The media has this argument that they're absolutely against that. So, yeah, that is just not going to be mentioned. Yet we had wall-to-wall coverage of Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
But no coverage of this. And even if they didn't want an armed officer in every school, at least allow the teachers or any other adult on campus to carry their weapon if they have a permit and defend themselves. And others should the situation arise, I would think.
The officer didn't have an assault weapon, did he? It wasn't used.
I would assume not. I would assume, and
that blows that out of the water.
Yeah. But from the story, it just says he was able to get the gun away. So I don't know if he had to draw down on him or he just went over and grabbed it.
They'll never tell us.
Oh, we'll never get the full
we'll never
story
get the details
on
on that. Anything else we will. They have the color of socks and underwear the guy was wearing, but no.
Yeah, and the fact that we need to just do away with guns. If we could just do away with that, then we'd be fine.
Yeah, no other place in the world, no other country manufactures guns or anything. Just America. That's
just America. Well, and we've banned drugs too.
And you see,
we don't have any drugs.
No,
in
you
here
can't
at
get
all.
drugs because they're all illegal. So it's worked.
Yeah, it works perfectly.
Good plan.
So we can ban drugs.
That's sarcasm.
Yeah. Yes, it's very heavy in the room when I'm in here. A just a overhanging sarcasm floating around. But it's almost like these people continue to pray for another shooting to help advance their legislative agenda on the corpses of some more dead people. And hey, if they shoot some children, all the better. It'll just make it easier to sell that tyrannical law to a grieving and gullible public. It's kind of like taking advantage of someone who has gone through a bad breakup. And you want to be nice and listen to their pain while all the time maneuvering them towards your bedroom. You know, that just sounds real classy, doesn't it?
It's the truth.
It is the truth. That's exactly what happens.
The ugly, ugly truth.
Yeah, baby. He's so mean and everything. Why don't you lay down, you know, and relax?
Here, let me rub your shoulders.
Tori's a little too good at that.
Are your feet sore?
Yeah, just hand over your rights. All right. What are we coming up on the end here, Tori? Oh, yeah, okay.
It's time to go home and get the Boston Bud out of the smoker.
All right. If you, there's Super Bowl party at Tori's.
Yep.
You just have to know where you live. Just drive around Seymour and look for all the cars. And the police.
Yes.
Follow the police where they're going, and you'll find Tori's house.
And the Applewood smoke.
All right. All right. Thank you again for listening to the Patrick Riggins Show this week here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network. If you want more information about us, go to facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Also hit that like button. You can also go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And all the archives are there. If you want to listen to something from this show, it'll be up in, probably a day or so, whenever the staff people get around to doing that. You can also email us at patrickrigginshow@gmail.com or drop us a card or letter or anything in the mail, U.S. mail here in care of the station, WNOX on Kingston Pike in Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, I think that's it. Join me next Sunday afternoon. I got nothing now. Join me next Sunday afternoon. Once again, we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins. We'll be seeing you next Sunday afternoon. We're going to be at Tori's house in a little while.
Hooray!
Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show. Every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.